When you stop chasing, stop begging, stop waiting for someone to see you, choose you, love you the way you deserve, it's like a switch flips inside you. The desperation disappears. The need for validation fades. And suddenly, you're no longer the woman waiting on someone else's approval. You become the woman no man can resist. Because here's the truth. When you detach, you rise. When you pull back your energy, when you stop making someone else the center of your world, that's when they start leaning in. It's not about playing games. It's about owning your power. It's about knowing deep in your soul that you are enough, just as you are. So today, I'm going to break down exactly why detachment makes you magnetic, why men can't resist a woman who walks away from what doesn't serve her, and most importantly, how you can step into this power today. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. It sounds simple, right? But let's break it down, because this single mindset shift can completely transform the way you show up in relationships, and more importantly, in life. Think about the most confident person you know. Maybe it's a friend, a coworker, or even someone you admire from a distance. What is it about them that draws people in? It's not their looks, their money, or their social status. It's their energy. It's the way they carry themselves, the way they walk into a room like they belong there, without needing anyone's approval. That's confidence. And confidence is magnetic. Now, let's talk about what happens when you don't operate from this place of confidence, when you're constantly seeking validation, when you're overly invested in how someone else perceives you, when your happiness depends on whether they text back or not. That's an energy that people can feel. And let me tell you, it's an energy that repels. We've all been there. You meet someone, you start to like them, and before you know it, they become the center of your world. You analyze every message, every conversation, every little action. You start adjusting yourself. Maybe you don't say what's really on your mind because you don't want to scare them away. Maybe you're always available, always the first to reach out, always the one making the plans, and then something shifts. Instead of appreciating all the effort you're putting in, they start pulling away. They seem less interested, less engaged. And you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? Here's what happened. The energy dynamic flipped. You made them the prize. You handed over your power without even realizing it. And the moment someone feels like you need them more than they need you, the attraction starts to fade. Now imagine the opposite scenario. Imagine you meet someone, and instead of making them the center of your universe, you remain the center of your own. You like them, sure, but you're not desperate for their attention. You're not waiting by the phone, you're not overanalyzing, and you're not bending over backward to accommodate them. Instead, you're focused on your own life, your passions, your goals, your happiness. What happens then? Suddenly, you become the one they can't stop thinking about. Why? Because you're radiating confidence. When you know your worth, you don't have to prove it to anyone. You don't have to convince someone to choose you. You don't have to chase, because deep down, you trust that the right person will recognize your value without you having to beg for it. Confidence is about believing that you are enough, just as you are. It's about knowing that if someone doesn't see your worth, that's their loss, not yours. It's about walking away from situations that don't serve you without fear. And let me tell you something powerful. The moment you start embodying this kind of energy, everything shifts. The people you used to chase will start chasing you. The ones who took you for granted will start noticing your absence. And most importantly, you'll start feeling different inside. You'll stop caring so much about who texts first. You'll stop overthinking every little interaction. You'll stop needing constant reassurance because you'll already have that reassurance within yourself. And this isn't just about dating or relationships. It's about every area of your life. Confident people get better jobs. They have stronger friendships. They walk into opportunities that others miss simply because they believe they belong there. Confidence is magnetic because it signals certainty. People are drawn to those who know what they want, who don't second-guess themselves, who don't shrink themselves to fit into someone else's expectations. And the best part? Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. So how do you start embodying this energy today? First, start paying attention to your mindset. What do you believe about yourself? Do you truly believe you're enough, or are you still seeking outside validation? If it's the latter, it's time to shift that. Affirm your worth every single day. Remind yourself that you bring value to any relationship, and if someone doesn't see that, it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection. Second, start setting boundaries. Confident women don't tolerate half-hearted love. They don't accept breadcrumbs. They don't waste time on people who don't prioritize them. When you start walking away from situations that don't serve you, you send a powerful message. I know my worth. Third, invest in yourself. Confidence doesn't just come from thinking differently, it comes from being different. Work on yourself. Read books, hit the gym, learn new skills, do things that make you feel powerful, because when you feel good about yourself, it naturally radiates outward. Fourth, stop overgiving. You don't need to prove your love by doing the most. Let people meet you halfway. Let them show you that they value you. The moment you stop overextending yourself, you'll see who actually steps up. And that's a game changer. And finally, detach from outcomes. This is the hardest but most powerful shift you can make. Stop obsessing over whether someone likes you, whether they'll call, whether they'll choose you. Instead, focus on this. Do you like them? Do they add value to your life? Do they meet your standards? When you start asking those questions, you flip the dynamic. And when you detach from needing a specific outcome, you become unstoppable. Confidence isn't about arrogance. It's not about acting like you're better than anyone else. It's about knowing that you are already enough and carrying yourself accordingly. And trust me, when you do that, people can't help but be drawn to you. The moment you detach, you show the world how you expect to be treated. This is one of the most powerful shifts you can make, and it will transform not only your relationships, but your entire life. So let's talk about what it really means to set the standard. Think about the way you allow people to treat you. Every time you accept behavior that makes you feel small, unimportant, or unworthy, you're teaching the world that this is what you will tolerate. Every time you overextend yourself for someone who doesn't reciprocate, you're setting the standard that your love and effort don't require equal investment. And when you do this long enough, it becomes your normal. You find yourself in situations where people take you for granted, where you feel unappreciated, unseen, and undervalued. And you might even start to wonder, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I always attract people who don't respect my time, my energy, or my love? The truth is, people treat you based on the energy you put out. And if you've been showing up as someone who will always be available, always give, always say yes, even when it's inconvenient or painful for you, then that's the standard you've set. But here's the good news. You can change it. You don't have to keep accepting less than what you deserve. You don't have to stay stuck in a pattern where you give everything and get almost nothing in return. The moment you decide that you will no longer tolerate certain behaviors, everything shifts. So how do you set a new standard? First, you must get crystal clear on what you want and what you will no longer accept. If you don't define your standards, no one else will. What does respect look like to you? What does love feel like when it's healthy? How do you want to be treated in a relationship, in a friendship, in your workplace? If you don't know the answers to these questions, you'll keep settling for whatever is given to you. The second step is enforcing your standards with action, not just words. It's not enough to say, I want respect. You have to show people what that means. If someone consistently ignores your boundaries, doesn't make an effort, or treats you as an option, you can't just complain about it. You have to remove yourself from that situation. And I know what you're thinking, but what if they change? What if I just explain one more time? What if I just try harder? Let me tell you something. The right people won't need endless explanations. The people who truly respect you, who value you, who deserve a place in your life, will adjust their behavior because they care. And the ones who don't, they'll fall away. And that's exactly what needs to happen. You see, setting the standard isn't about changing other people. It's about changing yourself, your expectations, your boundaries, and your willingness to walk away when those aren't met. And I get it, walking away is hard. Detaching from someone you care about, from a relationship you invested in, from a situation that once felt comfortable, it's not easy. But do you know what's even harder? Staying in a cycle where you constantly feel undervalued, where you keep giving more than you're receiving, where you continue to lower your standards just to keep someone in your life. When you finally decide, enough, I will not settle. I will not beg for the bare minimum. I will not keep explaining why I deserve better. That's when you reclaim your power. And do you know what happens next? People rise to meet your standards. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to command respect effortlessly? How they never have to chase anyone, never have to beg for time or attention, never have to convince someone to treat them right. It's not luck. It's not magic. It's because they set a standard and they don't waver. They don't entertain people who play games. They don't waste time with those who can't communicate or commit. They don't shrink themselves to fit into relationships that don't value them. They know their worth, and because of that, the world reflects it back to them. And here's the best part. When you set a high standard for yourself, it doesn't just affect your relationships. It affects everything. Your career starts to shift because you stop settling for jobs that drain you. Your friendships evolve because you no longer tolerate one-sided connections. Your confidence grows because you start making decisions that align with your worth. But here's the catch. You have to be consistent. You can't set a standard one day and lower it the next just because you're lonely, just because you miss them, just because you're afraid of starting over. Your standards only work when you uphold them, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means walking away from someone you love, even when it means spending time alone instead of settling for the wrong company. Because the truth is, setting the standard isn't just about how others treat you, it's about how you treat yourself. Do you respect your own time, your own boundaries, your own heart? Do you show up for yourself the way you expect others to show up for you? Or are you constantly putting yourself last, hoping that one day someone will come along and value you the way you deserve? You have to become the person who values you first, because when you do, the world follows. People will start treating you differently, not because they suddenly changed, but because you did. You stop tolerating less. You stop explaining yourself to those who refuse to listen. You stop making excuses for why it's okay to accept breadcrumbs when you deserve the whole damn cake. And when you stand firm in that, when you stop settling, stop chasing, stop begging for attention, that's when everything shifts. That's when the right people step up. That's when the wrong ones fade away. That's when you stop wondering, why do they treat me this way? Because you no longer allow them to. You have the power to rewrite the story, to change the way you're treated, to set the standard so high that only those who truly deserve you will be able to reach it. And trust me, when you do that, you'll never go back. A woman who values herself enough to say no commands respect. This is a truth that cannot be denied. It's not about being difficult, unapproachable, or playing games. It's about recognizing your worth and refusing to accept anything that does not align with it. Many women struggle with setting boundaries because they fear rejection. They believe that saying no will push people away, make them less likable, or create conflict. But the opposite is true. Saying no does not make you difficult. It makes you powerful. It shows that you are a woman who respects herself, and that is something men and people in general deeply admire. So why is it that boundaries are so difficult for some women to set? The answer often comes down to conditioning. Society has taught women to be agreeable, to accommodate others, to avoid making waves. Many of us have been raised to believe that being liked is more important than being respected. But let me tell you something. Being liked means nothing if it comes at the cost of your self-respect. Respect is earned when you have the courage to stand firm in what you will and will not accept. It's earned when you stop bending over backward to please people who would never do the same for you. It's earned when you stop explaining yourself, stop apologizing for having standards, and stop fearing that your boundaries will drive people away. Because here's the truth. The right people will respect your boundaries, and the wrong people will be removed by them. Think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where you constantly overextended yourself for someone? Maybe you always said yes, even when you were exhausted. Maybe you accepted last-minute plans, even when you had other things to do. Maybe you forgave behavior that hurt you just to keep the peace. And what happened? Did that person suddenly respect and appreciate you more? Or did they start expecting even more from you while giving less in return? People will always test your limits. It's not because they're necessarily bad people. It's just human nature. When they see that you will always say yes, that you will always be available, that you will always forgive without consequences, they start to assume that's just who you are. Not because they mean to take advantage, but because you have shown them that they can. But the moment you shift, the moment you start saying no to things that drain you, to people who take you for granted, to situations that do not align with your worth, everything changes. People start seeing you differently. They start realizing that your time, your energy, and your love are not just freely given. They have to be earned. And let's talk about men for a moment. Nothing earns a man's respect faster than a woman who has strong boundaries. A woman who is not afraid to walk away from what doesn't serve her. A woman who does not need to prove her worth by overgiving. A man respects a woman who says, I'm not okay with that. A man respects a woman who says, I don't accept inconsistency. A man respects a woman who says, if you want access to my life, you have to show up fully. Because men are wired to pursue. They value what they have to work for. If everything is handed to them on a silver platter, they don't appreciate it. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to get because you know your value. And let me be clear, having boundaries does not mean being cold, rude, or distant. It simply means that you refuse to settle for less than what you deserve. It means you will not allow anyone, no matter how much you care about them, to disrespect, neglect, or undervalue you. When you start setting boundaries, people will notice. Some may resist at first. They may push back, get frustrated, or even try to guilt trip you into going back to your old ways. That's because they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. But you cannot let that stop you. Because the ones who truly respect you, they will adjust. They will rise to meet your standards. They will see you as someone they cannot afford to lose. And this isn't just about romantic relationships. It applies to friends, family, coworkers, everyone. The people who respect you the most are not the ones who are constantly testing your limits. They are the ones who recognize and honor them. Now let's talk about the inner transformation that happens when you start enforcing your boundaries. Something incredible happens when you stop being afraid to say no. You start to feel lighter. You start to feel free. You no longer feel obligated to be everything for everyone. You no longer feel the weight of constantly putting others' needs above your own. And for the first time, you start to see that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. You start to trust yourself more. You start to believe that you are worthy of respect, not because someone else tells you so, but because you have proven it to yourself. You have shown yourself that you are capable of standing up for what you deserve. And do you know what else happens? You attract better people into your life. When you set a high standard, the wrong people fall away, but the right ones step up. The ones who respect you, who appreciate you, who see your worth without you having to convince them. The ones who meet your energy, who match your effort, who bring value to your life instead of draining it. Because here's the truth. Boundaries don't push away the right people. They filter out the wrong ones. And the sooner you start enforcing them, the sooner you start living a life that is filled with mutual respect, genuine connection, and deep fulfillment. So, if you've been afraid to set boundaries, if you've been worried about what people will think, if you've been hesitant to say no because you don't want to seem difficult, it's time to let that go. Because the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is to honor your worth, stand firm in your standards, and refuse to accept anything less than what you deserve. And when you do that, you will command a level of respect that no one can take away from you. There is something undeniably powerful about a woman who does not seek validation from anyone. She walks into a room and you can feel it. Her presence, her energy, her unwavering sense of self. She doesn't need to be the loudest person in the room, nor does she demand attention. Instead, people are naturally drawn to her. Why? Because she knows who she is. She doesn't look to others to tell her she's beautiful, valuable, or worthy. She doesn't wait for compliments, reassurance, or approval before she believes in herself. She has already given herself all of that. And when a woman reaches this level of confidence, she becomes unstoppable. But here's the truth. Most women don't start out this way. Most women are conditioned to seek validation. It starts early. We're taught to be nice, to be accommodating, to prioritize others' opinions over our own. Society tells us that our worth is tied to how desirable we are, how likable we are, how much we fit into other people's expectations. And so we grow up looking for validation in all the wrong places. We check our reflection wondering if we look good enough. We overanalyze text messages trying to decipher someone's feelings. We say yes when we want to say no because we don't want to disappoint. We stay in relationships that make us feel small because we're afraid of being alone. All of this stems from one thing: a need for external validation. And this is where the real work begins. Because if you truly want to become a woman who commands respect, admiration, and genuine attraction, you must stop seeking validation from outside sources. You must learn to validate yourself. Think about it. When you rely on external validation, what happens? Your mood depends on how others treat you. Your confidence fluctuates based on whether someone compliments you or not. Your sense of self-worth is dictated by who texts you, who notices you, who chooses you. This is dangerous because it means you are never truly in control of your own happiness. It means your confidence is built on a foundation that can crumble the moment someone decides they no longer want to give you attention. But when you validate yourself first, everything changes. When you look in the mirror and say, "I am enough," without waiting for someone else to confirm it, you take back your power. When you make decisions based on what feels right for you rather than what will make you more likable, you take back your power. When you walk away from situations that don't serve you without waiting for permission, you take back your power. And do you know what happens when you do this? People start to respect you more. They start to see you differently because they can feel the shift in your energy. When you no longer seek validation, you become magnetic. Because here's the truth about human nature. People are naturally drawn to those who don't need them. When a woman carries herself with the energy of "I am already whole," she becomes irresistible, not just to men, but to everyone, friends, colleagues, strangers, because confidence is one of the most attractive qualities a person can have. But how do you actually cultivate this level of self-cultivation? How do you go from constantly seeking approval to being completely secure within yourself? 1. Start by recognizing your own value. You have to see yourself as worthy before anyone else does. This means taking inventory of everything that makes you amazing: your kindness, your strength, your intelligence, your creativity. Whatever it is, own it. Write it down if you have to. Remind yourself daily that your value is not dependent on whether or not someone acknowledges it. 2, stop looking for permission. Too many women wait for someone else to validate their decisions. They hesitate to take action because they're afraid of what others will think. Stop waiting. If you want to do something, do it. If you have an opinion, voice it. If you have a boundary, enforce it. You do not need anyone's approval to live your life on your terms. 3, get comfortable with discomfort. Here's the hard part. When you stop seeking validation, you will feel uncomfortable at first. You may even feel lonely. That's because you're breaking a habit that has been ingrained in you for years. But discomfort is where growth happens. Sit with it. Embrace it. Remind yourself that this is part of the process of becoming the strongest, most confident version of yourself. 4, stop over-explaining yourself. Women who don't seek validation do not feel the need to justify their choices. They do what they feel is right for them and move on. If you say no, let it be a complete sentence. If you set a boundary, stand by it without offering a long explanation. The more you feel the need to explain yourself, the more you are seeking permission. 5, pay attention to your energy. When you enter a room, do you shrink yourself? Do you subconsciously look for signs that you are liked or accepted? Start becoming aware of these moments. Instead of looking for approval, shift your focus inward. Stand tall, own your space, move through life with the confidence of someone who knows they belong. Because you do. 6, shift from external validation to internal validation. Whether it's through social media likes, a text message response, or someone's reaction to you, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really looking for right now? If the answer is validation, remind yourself that you don't need it. Give yourself the reassurance you are seeking from others. 7. Accept that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. Confident women do not need to be liked by everyone. They are selective about who they give their time, energy, and attention to. Instead of worrying about whether people like you, focus on whether you like them. This shift in perspective will change everything. 8. Walk away when necessary. When a woman knows her worth, she does not stay in situations that diminish her. She does not tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or half-hearted effort. She does not beg to be chosen. Instead, she chooses herself. And in doing so, she sets the standard for how others should treat her. The moment you stop looking for validation, you step into a new version of yourself, one that is strong, unshakable, and deeply self-assured. And trust me, the world will notice.